Now, one person had a dream where they were surrounded by Essassani beings and they were told that they're getting a promotion and that it would involve a lot more responsibility. And the person felt a lot of fear about whether they could accept that level of responsibility. Could you give us an idea of maybe what the interpretation of that kind of a dream would be?
Well, in a sense, it's kind of like saying, here is a reflection of more of your own true energy. Do you have a belief system that allows you to know you are capable of handling it and expressing it in a positive and responsible way? So it's sort of like presenting someone with their potential and finding out where their belief system is relative to the potential they're being shown to see if they're ready to flow that potential through themselves. They don't have to be, but it's a good marker to show them where they're at with respect to their understanding and belief system about their ability to flow the energy they're being presented with, to be more of themselves.
Okay. All right. These questions have to do with metaphysics. One of them having to do with why do we cross-connect to other lives and then interpret that as being a quote-unquote past life? And how does that influence us when we make a cross-connection to another life?
Well, you're always sort of gathering information that you may need to inform your own experience here in this life. So the idea of connecting to other beings in what you call different time frames has a lot to do with how you actually create your physical reality anyway. Remember that, as we said, the idea that you experience space and time are illusionary side effects of your consciousness shifting through billions of parallel frames of reality every single second. So because you're shifting through different frames of parallel realities anyway to create the idea of your physical space-time reality experience, you're automatically connecting and disconnecting with different beings, different versions of yourself and other beings in these different parallel realities to inform the track you're on based on the themes you chose to explore and the challenges that you chose to face in this life. So you're drawing from a number of sources to aid and assist you. It's sort of similar to the idea of your internet in that if you need a particular piece of information, you will Google it. So it's really no different than saying, well, I need a certain kind of experiential inspiration right now, and since that already exists in a parallel reality, instead of having to learn it from scratch, why not just tap into it and download that information so I'll automatically, synchronistically get the inspiration to move forward in the way that I need to, so I don't necessarily have to go through a longer process than I need at this particular moment.
Okay. And this is an interesting question, the idea of electrons in our auric field.
Yes.
Whether or not the people we're attracted to energetically may be out of balance in a number of electrons, and we're out of balance in a number of electrons, and that's where an attraction is created? Is that?
Well, yes and no. It can be used that way. It's one way in which you can interpret the idea of the electron field that is just above your skin and part of the auric field around your body electromagnetically. But depending upon the spin rate of those electrons will determine many different things, including possibly, potentially, in certain cases, ideas of attraction or even ideas of repulsion. Just depends on how they're spinning, what rate they're at, the rate of spin, the direction of spin, can be included in the overall vibrational sensing that you get in terms of whether or not it is important for you or germane or relevant for you to interact in certain situations with other people.
So does each version of us have a different higher self?
Yes. Because remember, the idea of a being, a person, so to speak, in the classical sense of a part of a consciousness experiencing physical reality is what goes hand in hand with that. What is automatically contained in the kit is the non-physical higher self that guides that particular personality. And that means you also, for each person, have a particular individual soul, because it's the soul that diversifies itself into the non-physical higher mind to guide the physical mind having the physical experience. Where it gets more blended together is in the idea of the Oversoul, from which many singular souls can extend, and each individual soul thus creating a higher mind and a physical mind for that particular physical incarnational experience. But the Oversoul can simultaneously experience all of that if it wishes to.
So when we were originally hybridized by the Anunnaki,
Yes.
what changes did they make to us that were some positive and some negative that are still with us today that we're dealing with?
It is highly likely you would not have the religious structure that you have in certain religious organizations if you didn't have that experience, because what was instilled in the genetic makeup at that time was the idea that you are required to rely on the idea of an authority figure as an intermediary between you and your connection to all that is. Therefore, that's what the religious construct is all about. Not the spiritual construct, but the religious construct of an organization that acts as a go-between between you and your connection to all that is, whereas the spiritual one does not require, as you would say, a middleman.
Did they suppress our DNA in certain ways to make us feel disconnected from Source?
To some degree, because they needed to impose themselves as the source. Now, those markers are there and they're opening up, and you are realizing more and more that you have your own connection because you are reflections of Source. So the idea really was relatively temporary, and when the Anunnaki left and left you on your own to your own devices, and some of the more positive ones came back to guide you a little bit here and there, they knew that over time, because of the different cycles on the Earth and the idea of the expansion of consciousness in general, that those markers would probably drop away or turn back on in a way that would allow you more recognition of yourselves as reflections of Source, not necessarily requiring the so-called middleman or authority figure anymore to determine your relationship to all that is.
Okay, and lastly, on the idea of nature,
Yes.
is there an ET civilization that preserves animals that are being made extinct by humans? And
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
They're great. Now, where are they? They just preserve the DNA?
Sometimes they preserve the DNA and regrow the animals or the foliage, the trees. Sometimes they take whole animals to that world, transport them there. You, as a human society, would rarely miss many dozens of animals of a particular species, because you're simply not always that in touch with how many of them there actually are anyway. So I will tell you that maybe not absolutely all, but just about all animal species that have ever existed on your planet, and all plant species and flower species that have ever existed on your planet still exist on other worlds because they have been taken there in one form or another.
That is so exciting. And that means that, can that be used like to terraform other planets?
It can and often is.
Oh my goodness. Ah, that makes me feel better.
Part of that was used to create our world.
That's right, because you have species that are similar to ours in certain
Some. Now, evolution has taken some of them in different directions because our planet is different and the environment is different and so on and so forth. But we do have some that actually are almost identical to some of the species on your planet because, again, they have been seeded there for the purpose of creating a full ecosystem. Since some beings and creatures and animals and trees and flowers and so on and so forth have certain abilities, it's like sort of saying, why reinvent the wheel if they already will fit into a new ecosystem to provide that particular function to allow the ecosystem to thrive. So it's kind of like waste not, want not.
So before the humans were hybridized here, what was the Earth like? Is it like we were told about dinosaurs and, I mean...
Well, it depends on what era you're talking about. I mean, you have, as scientists, a relatively good idea, in general, of the different epochs that existed on your planet and what kind of life forms existed in them. You are missing some pieces, but not too many. But you're learning more about that. But again, remember, the idea of the hominids that existed before the Anunnaki injected their DNA were not human in the sense that you understand it. They were humanoid or human-like, hominids, but not actually Homo sapiens. It took the Anunnaki genetics to turn the hominid that existed naturally on your planet, that evolved naturally on your planet, into what you now consider yourselves to be as Homo sapiens, as human beings.
So interesting, the timing of the beings that they chose to use to hybridize would all be dependent on the level of evolution that we had achieved at that particular stage.
In some senses, yes, although there was quite a wide window there, because remember, they visited your planet several hundreds of thousands of years ago. So there was quite a long window of the idea of humanoid or hominid species existing on your planet for millions of years before they arrived. They knew it might be likely that they might find such life because of what you call panspermia, where different kinds of genetic material, DNA, is delivered to different planets on comets and asteroids and meteors. And thus it is not uncommon in certain sections of the galaxy to find somewhat similar life on a variety of planets, even though there may be vast differences. Certain sections are seeded in certain ways, and therefore there are clusters of planets within the galaxies when they are capable of harboring life that have some similarity between them, whereas in other clusters there may be a very different kind of life that was seeded from a different source altogether in the galaxy. But you will find that the idea of certain similarities exist not just on individual isolated planets, but on clusters of planets within the galaxy because of the way in which certain genetic material from different kinds of beings were spread throughout the galaxy.
So what is the purpose of viruses, and are they conscious?
Everything is made of consciousness. That doesn't mean that they are self-aware in the same way that you are. The basic purpose, actually, there are a multitude of purposes. Some of them are for the purpose of maintaining the physiological genetic strength of a species and removing those that aren't necessarily strong, so they can vacuum up the genetics in a way that can be reintroduced in a way that a new species can use them to maintain strength by becoming used to the idea of the way that the virus uses the DNA material and becoming immune to the negative effects over time. So viruses fundamentally strengthen the entire population by weakening or taking out the weakened ones.
And they spur us to make new advances in our technology.
Yes. Now, there's much more to them than that, but we're not going to go deeply into that now because that's a very large topic.
Okay. Just lastly, what is the distinction between elementals and nature spirits?
Not much. The idea in general is it just depends upon the presentation of that consciousness, how it chooses to present itself. In general, you can look at it this way. There is a kind of conscious energy field that is connected to the earth, its spirit form, so to speak, because everything has a spirit form. And that energy form, that consciousness field, is very plastic, very malleable. So certain vibrational patterns of consciousness, individual beings that are not necessarily physical per se, but are discrete, distinct, self-aware patterns of consciousness within that consciousness field, have more ability to manipulate the field in a way to create what appear to be physical bodies to present themselves in a different frequency, in a different domain. And that's why they can kind of come and go. They can manifest, seemingly physiologically, but then sort of back out into the energy field, the consciousness field again, and then manifest again in a different way. That's why many nature spirits are shapeshifters and are usually invisible to many of you if your senses don't extend that far into their particular non-physical domain, and can appear to people in many different ways, in many different times, in many different places, in many different shapes. They are the expressions of the consciousness field in discrete form for particular archetypal purposes.
Bashar, 11/11/2020, Russia announced that we are not alone. And the geopolitical and space expert Alexander Semenov spoke about the importance of establishing a peaceful collaboration in space. Could you give us your 5 cents on the issue? And happy belated birthday.
Obviously, we are a proponent of peaceful collaboration in space. Different cultures and different countries and nations on your planet will have their own recognition and realization at different timings of when it is appropriate for them to begin to admit and to recognize our existence and the existence of other extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional beings that have, to some degree, already been in contact with your planet, or those yet to contact your planet in a more open way. It's all part and parcel of the timing of the recognition and the opening of that recognition in different places on your planet that will eventually come together in a holistic sense so that the entire planet at one point will allow themselves to recognize the existence of extraterrestrial beings and in their own good timing be open to the idea of forming these collaborative interactions. Again, this will accelerate in the window of open contact that we have now said has shifted from 2023 to the idea of about 2033.
Hi, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
How's your day going?
Perfect, and you?
Perfect as well. I'm having a really nice synchronicity because it's almost year minus a day since I had a podcast with you, and then it just synchronistically happened that I was going to be able to ask you questions. So,
All right, congratulations on your synchronicity.
thank you. So I have a lot of questions about vibration, so hopefully we can get to most of them.
We will get to the ones that are important to get to, so you don't have to be hoping.
Okay, sounds good. So there was a woman I just recently watched Children of the Future, that transmission, and she mentioned a parallel life where she was a sort of doctor in a future reality. And she was talking about they were using vibration to, I guess, heal organs in the body.
Yes, this is a logical extension of where many will be heading in terms of experiencing everything as resonance, everything as frequency, and it will and is extending a little bit more and will continue to do so into your medical technology as well.
Right. And so my question was, I know we've also talked about you gave us an exercise where you could impose a vibration onto a ball and then we would find that it would go into a different location when it was. Yeah. So my question is, is there a difference, I guess, between imposing a vibration and getting a location and imposing a vibration and healing an organ? Or is there a difference, or how would that work? Like, for instance, if we impose a vibration on a liver, why wouldn't it move to a different location like the ball would?
Because you are not necessarily imposing a difference in the locational variable. You are taking a reading that gives you a different kind of output.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering. And then with using...
Although, in a sense, it's the same thing because, again, you are shifting to a slightly different reality where there is a healthy liver. So in a sense, that is a change of location too, just not in the classical sense of moving across a space.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, so with your ships, because still with like vibration and the location thing,
Yes.
So I guess if we were to use it, or even just you guys using it to get to certain locations, would
Yes.
you have to know, or I guess, will we find a pattern with vibration and location so that, for
Yes,
instance, we don't
you
have
create a grid. You start with your position, whatever position you desire to be the zero position, and you expand a grid out from there that represents the different locational variables, of course.
And so would that be like an X, Y, and Z kind of thing? So you can like move up and down, not just...
Of course.
Okay. Okay, cool.
It would not only be an XYZ thing, but a T thing as well. Remember, your experience of time is included in that.
Oh yeah, because time is also like a marker for different... Okay, that makes sense.
Yes. Because it's not only where you arrive, but when.
Right. Oh, that's so cool. And so we'll find that then eventually at some point in our discovery of
Eventually.
yeah, somewhere in the future. Okay. Oh yeah. So then also I know all these questions have to do with vibration, but
You said they were.
yeah. So if we were to maybe impose isn't the right word, but if we were to find a way to impose a vibration, kind of like how you've mentioned Egyptians did, I think I might be quoting this wrong, but I think you mentioned at some point there were certain coffin-like objects where they would go into it and then that would astral project, like they would use.
We were talking about the coffer in the king's chamber in the Pyramid of Giza.
Okay, and so if we were to do something like that, like maybe using stone or something, whatever
Yeah.
it is, and then impose vibration, would we just astrally project or would our physical bodies also go somewhere?
Both are possible. Again, it just depends upon the construction and the vibrational resonance that is induced.
Okay. And how would we get back? Like, would it be safe to do it? Or?
Well, there are a number of ways. Again, of course, with astral projection, you are in control of coming back anytime you wish.
Right.
The idea of the chamber inducing astral projection is just something that helps with the impetus of projecting out. It doesn't mean you have to have the idea of a projector on the other side in the astral realm. Your consciousness is sufficient. The idea of physical teleportation is something that may require, again, depending on a variety of factors, another device at the other end.
Right. Okay, so for physical transportation like that, would the device at the other end have to be resonating at the same frequency? Would it be like a sort of, I guess, beacon, but that's not the right word.
Yes, in a sense, it is interconnected. It is sort of similar on a macroscopic scale of what your scientists refer to as entanglement.
Got you. Okay, moving into some dream questions, if that's okay.
Yes.
So I've noticed this past week, myself and some friends of mine who I guess, people would consider like in tune or whatever with the collective or everyone has that ability, but you know what I mean. We've been having a lot of dreams of, for one, this whole week, the dreams have just been objectively dark, like really like playing on themes either of manipulation or things like that. And then we were also having dreams, a few of us having dreams this week in a row of a lot to do with tsunamis. And I know that could just be representative of the emotional state with water and everything, but everyone's been having them in the same location. It's been in between, some people are having them in Hawaii and some people are having them in California.
Yes.
So
there is a probability of such happening physically, but of course, there is always also the emotional and psychological component of the idea of great shift and things being washed away to make room for new things. So it is on both levels because there is a physiological probability. It may not be high at this particular moment, but there is a physiological probability of such happening in physical reality too.
At some point in the future?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go back to the vibration question. So with the imposing vibrations on bodies and stuff and astral projecting, will it feel like this is gonna be weird, but will it feel like the body's dying? Because like it feels like
it can. It depends upon the person's relationship and response to the idea of the vibration. It just depends on how cognizant they are of the shift and what the relationship and definition is of the idea that they are shifting into the concept or projection of a completely new personality, which to some may make it seem as if the old personality is dying in the classical sense, even though nothing of the sort is actually happening in exactly that way. So it just depends on the person.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Bashar.
Good day.
Good day.